It's a lingua franca. Let's compare two example questions. Did you get the report? And did you receive the report?
皆さんこんにちは。今日はビジネス英会話と日常英会話の違いについてです。この動画は専門職バイリンガル人材の転職支援をしているタリスマン株式会社が制作をしております。キャリアアップや転職情報などいろいろ情報を発信しておりますので、ぜひチャンネル登録をよろしくお願いします。So, Johnson, please introduce yourself.
Of course. So my name is John McGraw. I help Japanese business professionals succeed in global companies by improving their business English communication skills.
Alright, thank you very much. 今日のトピックは、一つ目がビジネス英語って何っていうことと、2番目がなぜそれが重要なのか。で、3つ目が実際に使う場面で使うべきフレーズとか、避けるべきフレーズとかですね。そういったところについてお話をお聞きしたいと思います。Okay, Johnson.
Okay.
Let's start.
All right. What is business English? So, to explain in simple terms, business English is communicating in English to help you achieve results at work. And it's used not only by people whose first language is English, it's also used by non-native speakers, and people all over the world are using it. So, why is it important? Well, using business English shows a level of education and sophistication that casual English does not. And also, it's a lingua franca. So what that means is it's used by non-native as well as native speakers to handle business transactions. So people aren't learning business English as a hobby or to make friends or to travel. They're not learning it to get a certain score on a test. But of course, you can use business English to get a good score on a test because it is formal language. But it's also not learning English to understand an English-speaking culture. People are learning business English as a tool to help them communicate between colleagues and with managers from around the world to complete real-life tasks. Many times, it's actually used to communicate between non-native speakers from different cultures. So, for example, Japanese and Malaysian business partners, or Brazilians and Saudi Arabians. They have different first languages, so they communicate in English to handle business. This is especially important in multinational companies and global business. In this way, English as a lingua franca is something that many native as well as non-native speakers have to learn if they want to be successful in a global environment, because it's different than the English that you might use in everyday situations with your friends, especially in a global company.
なるほど、なるほど。Thank you very much. 私の理解だと Can you とかが Could you とかっていう感じのことかなと思ってたけど、コミュニケーションのツールとしてやっぱりビジネス英語大事ですよっていうことですね。
Yes, indeed. It is very important. And like you said, using phrases like can you and could you are very important ways of making the English more polite. We often think of English as being very direct, and compared to Japanese, it is more direct. But there are phrases that we can use to make bad news a little softer and less offensive, like I'm afraid that, or unfortunately, or I'm sorry to bother you. For example, imagine you're going to tell a client that a shipment is going to be late. If you just say the shipment's going to be late, that's very direct, even in English, and very rude. However, if you say something like, I'm afraid that the shipment is going to be late, as soon as the person hears, I'm afraid of that, they know the news is bad, so it's starting to prepare them, and it's a more polite way to give bad news.
So, for example, if I'm a businessman working in a multinational organization, I have boss and colleagues and staff. and my clients outside. Should I use this business English to everyone?
That is a very good question. I would say when the relationship is new, it's a good idea to use this business English because the relationship is still very distant so that you don't offend the other person. Now, depending on the culture, sometimes the relationships, once you have them and they're stronger, you might use more casual English, everyday English. For example, Americans tend to be less formal in business. But of course, keeping in mind when you're working in a global company, you're working with people from many different cultures. And in some cases, some of those cultures may be very strict about formality in business. So if you're not sure, it's best to use more formal business English just to be on the safe side, at least until you know more about the other person.
なるほど。考え方は日本語でも英語でも一緒ですね。だから最初は丁寧にしておいた方が安全で、関係構築ができてきたら少しフランクにお話ししても全然大丈夫ですよっていう。
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you very much. あとは何だろう。他にフレーズとかってあるのかな。例えば buy という言葉、purchase とか。
Yes, that's correct. And that is a very good reason for using that. One, of course, the language is more formal, saying purchase instead of buy. But also, the other more important thing about using those more sophisticated words is that the meaning is more specific. So there is less chance of there being a misunderstanding or a miscommunication of an idea. As you said, with buy or purchase is one example. Another example would be get. Now, you think about the verb get, it has many different meanings. So, for example, you can use get to say that you're receiving something from another person, like I got lots of presents for my birthday. Or you can use it to mean to obtain something, like we have to get some help. Or to buy something. So I got a new iPad from the Apple Store. If you look at the dictionary, some dictionaries have over 30 entries for the word get. And this is a word that's used every day. So as you can imagine, there can be a lot of confusion about, depending on the situation and the context, what is the meaning. But if you take the verb receive, that has a much more specific meaning. Let's compare two example questions. Did you get the report? And did you receive the report? If you say, did you get the report? There could be multiple meanings. It could mean, did you receive the report from someone else? Did you go and find it yourself? Or even, did you understand, did you get the report? Did you understand what it meant? But with the question, did you receive the report? The meaning of the question is much clearer. And so there's less room for misinterpretation. So there are many verbs that are used every day that have multiple meanings, but these more formal verbs, and not only verbs, but also nouns as well, that are often used in business English are more specific, so it's clearer. Very important for native and non-native speakers when they're working together.
そういうクリアな単語もビジネス英語では必要。だからそれはそれでやっぱり状況に応じて一つずつ覚えていった方がいいんですね。
Yes. Now, speaking about the differences between business English, the more formal words, and the more calm and casual words, there's also one other thing that business English as a lingua franca tries to do, which is avoid phrasal verbs and avoid idioms. I'm sure the listeners here, or the people viewing, are quite familiar with phrasal verbs. So they're, just as a reminder, a phrasal verb is a verb that is combined with an adverb or a preposition. And the meanings, of course, when you put those two words together can be very different. of course, going back to the verb get, there are many different phrasal verbs with get. So to get along, which means to like each other, to get around, meaning you have mobility. You know, the CEO gets around in his new Mercedes, or to get away, to go on vacation. And as you can imagine, these can be very confusing because get by itself has a different meaning than get along or get away. In business English, it's better to use more distinct verbs and phrases to avoid the confusion with phrasal verbs. So, for example, instead of saying the two teams are getting along, you can say the two teams, they've established a good relationship or they have good rapport. That's much clearer. And on top of that, idioms. Idioms are quite tricky because idioms are very culture specific and also generation specific. Even native speakers won't know every idiom. Can I give you an example and maybe a little test here as well for you? I can go to a coffee shop. I live in Toronto, Canada. So I can go to a coffee shop here in Toronto and ask for a double-double. Now, Moriuchi-san, do you know what a double-double is? Or can you guess what a double-double is?
Okay. Double-double. Okay. Double espresso with double milk.
Pretty close. Actually, a pretty good guess. It's okay. Well, not quite though. Not quite though. In fact, it's a regular coffee with 2 servings of cream and 2 servings of sugar.
Okay. Well, interesting.
Now, yeah, this is the thing. This is a very Canadian expression, which means that native speakers from other parts of the world, such as the US or Australia or elsewhere, don't know what a double-double is. And this is the issue. Sometimes idioms can be useful to create a connection, but only if you know the other person uses that idiom and knows the meaning of the idiom. And this is the trouble. Otherwise, if you use the idiom, it might create confusion. And depending on the situation, it could cause problems with a relationship. So, although idioms can be useful to learn about a specific culture, but if you're in a multinational company, it's not going to necessarily be as useful. So, it's generally better to use clear, plain English to avoid confusion.
なるほど、なるほど。やっぱりクリアに分かりやすく表現しないとダメっていうことですね。
Yes, that's exactly right.
Thank you very much. 今日はビジネス英語の使い方とかですね、避けるべき表現とか、どういうふうにクリアな表現をした方がいいみたいな、そんなお話いろいろお聞きできました。So, John-san, I think we should keep creating this kind of contents.
Yes. That sounds like a great idea to me. And I enjoy being here and chatting with you. And I'd love to talk more about business English because there's so many other things that we can talk about and learn.
Thank you very much. もしこの動画が良かったと思ったら、サブスクライブとか、ライクをよろしくお願いいたします。ジョーさんのリンクトインのリンクとかですね、そういったものは概要欄に貼っておきます。Okay, ジョーさん、thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Moriuchi-san.